I sat there for a moment, engine ticking as it cooled, watching water sheet down the glass and blur the concrete pillars into gray shadows. My hands were still on the steering wheel. They'd been shaking during the drive back from the client meeting, and I'd gripped the leather hard enough to leave my palms damp and creased. Sarah's voice kept replaying in my head. Not the words themselves, but the way she'd said them. That particular tone she used when she was trying to sound casual about something that wasn't casual at all. "I'm jealous." 2 words, dropped into conversation like stones into still water, and I was still watching the ripples spread. The client, Monica Reeves, had laughed it off. Had made some joke about how flattering it was to inspire jealousy in someone as accomplished as Sarah Hendricks, head of our entire division. But I'd seen Monica's eyes flick to me, questioning, curious. And I'd felt my face go hot in that fluorescent conference room, felt my carefully constructed professional persona crack just slightly at the edges. I grabbed my bag from the passenger seat and made a run for the elevator, heels clicking against wet pavement. My blazer was soaked through by the time the doors closed, and I stood there dripping onto the metal floor, watching my distorted reflection in the brushed steel. My hair had gone frizzy. Mascara smudged under one eye. I looked like someone who just had their world tilt sideways, which I supposed was accurate enough. The office was mostly empty when I got upstairs. Past 6 on a Friday, and the reasonable people had already fled for their weekends. I should have been one of them. Should have been home already, should have been pouring a glass of wine and putting on comfortable clothes and trying to forget that Sarah Hendricks, my boss, my mentor, the woman I'd admired and learned from for 3 years, had just complicated everything with 2 words I couldn't unknow. My desk was in the open floor plan, one of 30 identical workstations arranged in neat rows. Sarah's office was glass-walled, positioned so she could see all of us while we worked. I'd always found it motivating before, that sense of visibility. Now I felt exposed. I dropped my bag and booted up my computer, telling myself I'd just finish the post-meeting notes and get out. Professional. Normal. Exactly what I'd always been. "You're still here." Sarah's voice came from behind me, and I actually jumped. Knocked my coffee mug with my elbow hard enough to send it spinning across the desk. Empty, thank God. I caught it before it could fall and turned in my chair, arranging my face into something I hoped looked neutral. She was leaning against the partition that separated my desk from my coworkers, jacket off, sleeves rolled up. She'd loosened her hair from its usual neat bun, and it fell in dark waves past her shoulders. She looked tired. Beautiful and tired, which was a combination I'd noticed before but had always carefully filed away under observations that don't mean anything. "Just wrapping up the Reeves notes," I said, and my voice came out steadier than I'd expected. "Wanted to get them done while everything was fresh." Sarah nodded, but she didn't move away. Just stood there, arms crossed, watching me with an expression I couldn't quite read. We'd worked together for 3 years. I knew her moods, could predict her reactions, had learned to anticipate what she needed before she asked. But this was new territory, and I felt suddenly, acutely aware that I had no map for it. "About what I said," she started, and I shook my head quickly. "You don't have to, I do actually." She moved closer, pulled out the chair from the empty desk next to mine and sat down. Not across from me, which would have felt like a meeting, but beside me, close enough that I could smell her perfume. Something expensive and subtle, the same scent that lingered in her office after our one-on-ones. That was inappropriate. I shouldn't have said it, and definitely not in front of a client. "I'm sorry." I should have accepted the apology. Should have told her it was fine, we could forget it, move on. Instead I heard myself ask, "Did you mean it?" The question hung between us. Sarah was quiet for a long moment, her eyes on her hands where they rested on her knees. She wore 3 rings, all silver. I'd seen her twist them when she was thinking, working through a problem. She was doing it now. "Yes," she said finally. "I meant it." My heart was doing something complicated in my chest. I stared at my computer screen, at the cursor blinking in the empty document where I was supposed to be typing professional notes about market positioning and brand strategy. The words seemed impossible now. Everything seemed impossible. "Monica was flirting with you," Sarah continued, her voice quiet but steady. "The whole meeting. And you were good with her. Charming and smart, and you made her laugh. Which is your job, I know that. You're brilliant at client relations." But watching it I felt, she stopped, breathed out slowly. I felt things I shouldn't feel about someone who reports to me. I turned to look at her then. Really look at her. Sarah was 41 to my 32, 9 years of experience and wisdom that had always felt like an unbridgeable gap. She was composed and controlled, the kind of leader who commanded rooms just by walking into them. I'd seen her negotiate million-dollar deals without breaking a sweat, had watched her dress down senior executives with surgical precision when they deserved it. But right now, sitting in my cheap desk chair with her guard down, she looked vulnerable in a way that made my chest ache. What kind of things? I asked, even though I knew I was pushing us past the point where we could pretend this conversation never happened. Sarah smiled, but it was sad around the edges. The kind where I wanted to interrupt every time she touched your arm. Where I noticed that you wore your blue dress because she mentioned in an email that blue was her favorite color. Where I stayed late every night this week just to have more time with you before you left. She paused. The kind where I've been in love with you for 6 months and telling myself it didn't matter because you've never once looked at me like anything other than your boss. The office was very quiet. Somewhere a phone was ringing in another department, ignored. The rain had picked up outside, drumming against the windows hard enough to hear it even 15 floors up. I thought about all the late nights, the coffee runs Sarah had volunteered for, the way she always remembered how I took my tea. The presentations she'd helped me prepare, staying until midnight to make sure every slide was perfect. The way she'd fought for my promotion last quarter, arguing with the board until they approved it. I'd thought it was mentorship. Generous, career-changing mentorship from someone who believed in my potential. Had it been more than that? Had there been signs I'd missed, too focused on my work to see what was right in front of me? I don't know what to say, I told her, honest even though honesty felt dangerous. Sarah stood up, smoothed her skirt with both hands. Back to composed, back to the armor she wore so well. You don't have to say anything. I just needed you to know that what I said wasn't a joke, and I'm sorry if it made you uncomfortable. It won't happen again. We can go back to normal. I'll make sure of it. She started to walk away, back toward her office, and I felt something like panic surge up in my throat. Wait. She stopped, turned. I stood up too, because this felt like something that needed to be said on equal footing. I wore the blue dress because I wanted to look good, I said. For the meeting, yes, but also because I knew you'd see me in it. I've noticed the late nights. I've noticed all of it. I just thought I was reading too much into things because I stopped, made myself breathe. Because I've had a crush on my boss for a year and convinced myself it was just admiration. The expression that crossed Sarah's face was complex enough that I couldn't catalog all of it. Hope, definitely. Surprise. Something that might have been fear. A year. Maybe longer. I'm not good at timelines when it comes to feelings. We stood there, 10 feet apart in the empty office, and I could feel the weight of every choice that had led us here. Every late night, every shared coffee, every moment I told myself meant nothing. The rain kept falling. Sarah took a step toward me, then stopped. This is complicated. I know. I'm your boss. There are rules. HR policies. I know that too. If we did this, really did this, one of us would have to transfer. Probably you, because I'm division head. It could hurt your career. I'd thought about that, actually, in the handful of moments over the past year when I'd let myself imagine what it might be like if Sarah saw me as something other than an employee. The calculation had always come out the same. My career was important. But some things mattered more. Or it could be the best decision I ever make, I said. Sarah laughed, soft and disbelieving. You're sure about that? No. But I'm sure I don't want to spend another year pretending I don't feel this way. She closed the distance between us then, not rushing but deliberate, until she was standing close enough that I could see the gold flecks in her brown eyes. She reached up, tucked a strand of my damp hair behind my ear, and the gesture was so tender it made my breath catch. If we do this, she said quietly, we do it right. We talk to HR. We're transparent. I won't have people thinking you've gotten ahead because of anything other than your talent. Okay. And we take it slow. I don't want to rush something this important. Okay. And if it doesn't work, if we realize we've made a mistake, we stay professional. We don't let it poison the team. I nodded, not trusting my voice anymore. Sarah smiled then, really smiled, and I realized I'd never seen her look quite this happy before. It transformed her face, made her look younger, made me want to find ways to put that expression there again and again. "Can I kiss you?" she asked, and the question was so unexpected after all her careful rules and boundaries that I actually laughed. "Yes," I said. "God, yes." She kissed me there in the middle of the office floor, with the rain pouring down outside and my computer still humming beside us and the whole messy future spread out ahead of us like an unmapped country. Her lips were soft and she tasted like coffee and something sweet, and when she pulled back I was dizzy with it, with the reality of Sarah Hendricks kissing me like she'd been thinking about it for months. Which I supposed she had. "I need to file paperwork on Monday," she said against my mouth, "practical even now," and I laughed again because it was so perfectly her. "Monday," I agreed. "But right now I'm taking you to dinner. Sarah, not as your boss. As someone who's been in love with you for 6 months and would very much like to spend an evening learning all the things about you that aren't in your employee file." I grabbed my bag, shut down my computer, and let her take my hand as we walked to the elevator. Her palm was warm against mine, her grip firm and sure, and I felt something settle in my chest that I hadn't known was restless. The weekend stretched ahead of us. Monday would bring complications, paperwork, difficult conversations. But for now there was just this, Sarah's hand in mine, the rain still falling, and the knowledge that sometimes the scariest thing was also the rightest thing, and all you could do was be brave enough to reach for it. We ended up at a small Italian place 3 blocks from the office, the kind of neighborhood spot with red checkered tablecloths and candles stuck in wine bottles. Sarah knew the owner, apparently, got us a corner table despite the Friday night crowd. We ordered wine and pasta and talked about everything except work. She told me about growing up in Boston, about her mother who'd been a labor organizer and her sister who taught literature at a small college in Vermont. I told her about my own childhood in Portland, about the bookstore my parents had owned until the economy crashed, about why I'd gone into marketing instead of creative writing like I'd planned. "I read your college essays," Sarah admitted over tiramisu. "When I was considering you for the promotion. They were in your application file from when you first interviewed. You're a beautiful writer." I felt my face heat. Those were years ago. I'm rusty now. "I doubt that. You have a way with language. It comes through even in your client emails." She reached across the table, let her fingers brush mine. "Maybe you should write again. For yourself." No one had said that to me in years. I'd buried that dream so deep I'd almost forgotten it was there, replaced it with quarterly targets and performance reviews and the steady climb up a corporate ladder I'd never really wanted to climb. But here was Sarah, who could have talked about my strategic thinking or my leadership potential, choosing instead to see the part of me I'd hidden away. We talked until the restaurant started putting chairs on tables around us, until the owner came by with a gentle reminder that they closed at 11. Sarah paid despite my protests, and we walked back to the parking garage together. The rain had stopped, leaving the streets slick and shining under the streetlights. "I don't want this to end," I said when we reached my car. Sarah pulled me close, kissed my forehead. "It's not ending. It's just starting. I'll call you tomorrow. Please." I drove home in a daze, my apartment feeling emptier than usual when I let myself in. I showered and got into bed and lay there staring at the ceiling, trying to process the fact that my entire life had shifted in the space of a few hours. My phone buzzed. A text from Sarah. "Just wanted to make sure you got home safe. And thank you for tonight. For being brave enough to tell me the truth." I smiled and typed back. "Thank you for being brave first. Sleep well. You too. Sweet dreams." I didn't sleep well. I didn't sleep much at all. I kept thinking about the way Sarah had looked at me across the dinner table, the way her hand had felt in mine, the way my whole body had hummed with awareness when she kissed me. I kept thinking about Monday, about HR, about how complicated this was going to be. But mostly I kept thinking about how right it had felt, how much like coming home. Saturday morning I woke to another text. "Good morning. I know we said we'd take things slow, but I was hoping you might want to spend the day together? If that's too much too fast, tell me. I won't be offended." I stared at the message for a long moment, then typed, "I'd love that. What did you have in mind?" She picked me up at 10. No makeup, jeans and a soft sweater, her hair in a ponytail. She looked younger like this, less intimidating, though no less beautiful. She'd brought coffee from my favorite shop, remembered that I took it with oat milk and 1 sugar. I thought we could drive up the coast, she said as I got in her car. There's a state park about an hour north. Good hiking trails if you're up for it. I'm up for it. We drove with the windows down, radio playing soft indie rock, her hand resting on my knee. The morning was clear and cool, the kind of perfect autumn day that made you forget winter was coming. We talked more, easy conversation now that the hard part was behind us. She asked about my friends, my hobbies, what I did with my weekends when I wasn't working. I asked about hers. I don't have much of a life outside work, she admitted. It's been consuming me for years. The divorce didn't help. I'd known she was divorced. It was in that vague category of things everyone in the office knew but didn't talk about. How long ago? 3 years. We were together for 8. She wanted kids, a house in the suburbs, someone who'd be home for dinner. I wanted to build my career. We wanted different futures. There was old pain in her voice, but not fresh wounds. Any regrets? Not about the divorce itself. We weren't right for each other. But I regret letting work consume me so completely that I couldn't see what I was losing until it was gone. I regret not being braver sooner, about a lot of things. She glanced at me. I spent a long time thinking I'd missed my chance at something real. That I'd traded it for corner offices and titles and performance bonuses that didn't mean anything when I went home to an empty apartment. And now I'm cautiously optimistic. She smiled. And terrified. But mostly optimistic. The state park was beautiful, trails winding through old-growth forest that smelled like pine and earth and rain. We hiked for 2 hours, stopping occasionally to catch our breath or admire the view. Sarah was surprisingly outdoorsy, pointed out plants and birds with casual expertise. My ex and I used to hike a lot, she explained. It was one of the few things we both enjoyed. I kept it up after because it helps me think. We found a clearing with a view of the ocean and sat on a fallen log, sharing the trail mix Sarah had packed. The water was gray-blue and endless, white caps rolling in steady procession. I could hear seabirds calling, the wind in the trees behind us. This is nice, I said, inadequate but true. Sarah leaned against me, her shoulder warm against mine. It is. I'd forgotten what it felt like to share things with someone who actually wanted to be here. I want to be here. I know. That's the terrifying part. That you want this as much as I do, and I could still find a way to mess it up. I turned to look at her. Her profile was strong and elegant, her eyes on the horizon. You won't. You're very certain about that. I'm certain that you're one of the most thoughtful people I've ever met. That you think through every decision from every angle. That you care about doing the right thing, even when it's hard. Those aren't qualities that lead to messing things up. Sarah turned then, cupped my face in both hands. I really like you, she said, and it sounded almost helpless. I know it's too soon to feel this strongly, but I do. I really, really like you. I really like you too, I whispered, and then she was kissing me again, softer this time, exploratory. Her tongue traced my lower lip and I opened for her, tasted coffee and trail mix and something essentially Sarah. My hands found her waist under her sweater, felt the warmth of her skin, the way she shivered at my touch. We pulled apart when we heard voices on the trail, other hikers approaching. Sarah laughed, breathless, her cheeks flushed. We should probably get back to the car before I forget we're in public. The drive back was quiet, comfortable. Sarah's hand found mine on the console, fingers interlaced. I felt settled in a way I hadn't in years, like something that had been slightly off-kilter had finally clicked into place. Come over for dinner? Sarah asked as we neared the city. I'll cook. Nothing fancy, just pasta and salad. But I'm not ready for the day to end yet. Yes, I said, simple and sure. Her apartment was in a high-rise downtown, all clean lines and floor-to-ceiling windows with a view of the harbor. The furniture was expensive and minimal, the kind of carefully curated space that appeared in design magazines. But there were signs of life too, books stacked on the coffee table, a throw blanket draped over the couch, photographs on the mantel. I studied the photos while Sarah opened wine in the kitchen. Her with a woman who must have been her ex-wife, both of them smiling on what looked like a tropical beach. Her with 2 teenagers who resembled her strongly. Her with an older woman who had to be her mother, same strong features and direct gaze. My nieces, Sarah said, coming up behind me with 2 glasses. Abby and Jules. They're 17 now. I see them a few times a year when I visit my sister. They look like you. Personality-wise too, according to my sister. Stubborn and opinionated and too smart for their own good. She handed me a glass. What about you? Any siblings? One brother. He's in Seattle, works in tech. We're close but don't see each other enough. My parents are still in Portland, still running a bookstore somehow despite Amazon's best efforts. We sat on the couch while Sarah cooked, talking and drinking wine and occasionally kissing when the impulse became too strong to resist. Dinner was simple like she'd promised, but good. We ate at her small dining table, knees touching underneath, and I felt the strangeness of being here in Sarah's personal space, seeing the version of her that existed outside conference rooms and performance reviews. This is surreal, I said over coffee. Being here with you like this. 2 days ago you were just my boss. I was never just your boss, Sarah corrected gently. Maybe to you I was, but to me you've been this brilliant, funny, beautiful woman I had to be professional around even though all I wanted was to know you better. You could have said something sooner. I was terrified. Of crossing lines, of abusing my position, of you not feeling the same way. Of you feeling the same way but only because I have power over your career. There's no clean way to navigate this. She was right. I knew she was right. But sitting there in her apartment, feeling the weight of her gaze on me, I couldn't bring myself to care about the complications. Stay, Sarah said when it got late. Not a question, not quite, but close. I have a guest room if you're not comfortable with anything else. But I'd like to wake up and know you're here. I thought about my empty apartment, about going home alone when I could stay here instead. Okay. Okay, you'll stay? Yes. She smiled like I'd given her something precious.